Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Product for Product. Thanks for joining us this week. We're continuing our series on in-app messaging by discussing the tool Braze. We are also excited to have Ken Hanson on the show to discuss his work in product management and his experiences with Braze. Ken is our first two-time guest. He previously joined us on episode 5. So welcome back to the show, Ken.
Hey, thanks for having me back on. This is great. I was really excited to be a two-time guest. I think so. I mean, I'm scaling up and my own skill set for sure. And this is kind of a perfect podcast for me to continue to becoming a part of a guest, because I'm just messing with vendors like all day that impact our product management as well as our marketing teams. And I get to sit in the middle of those two teams. And so I think the biggest update would be, from the Amplitude podcast, we said they're just analytics and they're just really good at analytics, but they've sort of started playing inside of experimentation space, being able to feature flag and A/B test things correctly, which is fantastic because their data is what we use to feed our testing data anyway. And so it's like all in one home now. And
Excellent.
We're very much pursuing them there. And then they've started playing a little bit into like places like Segment.io, where they're trying to become a customer data platform where you can pipe data in and out and to various connection points and really see that like mapping correctly. And so if you listen to that podcast, it's much more than it was even just a few short months ago. So Amplitude's a great tool and highly recommend people check it out.
Yeah, that's cool. And I think since the last time we talked, you had gotten into MarTech as well. So
that's right. Yeah, the team is up and running and we've launched several pilots using Braze and other tools and done a ton of work standing up another business unit into Braze. And so I've done the top to bottom work twice now for Braze and like rolling it out and adopting it and getting teams built up on it. And we're killing it with it, and our metrics really reflect that, and it's been a great experience. So
very cool.
Hey Ken, welcome again to our show. This is always exciting to speak with people that we already know, that we shared some knowledge from before, and get to see where you are today and how you're moving forward with this practice. So it's really cool for having you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Braze, let's start talking about that, what we're here for today. It's an interesting product because, frankly, I, as a product manager, I didn't really hear about it before. And then you told me that you're using it for some of your in-app messaging. Tell us a bit about this product. Who is this product is for? What are the capabilities of the product in general, not just for in-app messaging? And then maybe start touching a bit about these in-app messaging capabilities.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, Braze really is like a customer engagement platform. They're going to cover, and we were originally interested in them because they handle push notification really well. They're heavily data-driven. And the really unique thing is that, a lot of the exciting behavioral data that you would capture inside of your apps being piped into Braze powers everything that they do. And that's everything from push notification, like I talked about, to in-app messages, to what they call content cards. So, like content feeds of, sections of the app that you may like inject a custom experience to somebody. So in our case, at rewardStyle, where we do a lot of influencer marketing platform work, when a consumer shows up into a feed, they can bump into content that is all about what they recently shopped from, aggregated up, and then really targeted toward that single person showing up instead of like a feed that has to be maybe programmed to be powered down to that level. And so like Braze just kind of handles all that in a way where I can prioritize and stack what I want that consumer to see, but relevant to what they've done. It's kind of difficult to explain without visuals, of course, but if I was searching boots, I can make sure that person that was searching boots shows up and they look at their feed and they see a content card, for example, or they get a push about boots, or they see an in-app message about boots, or they get an email about boots, or they get an SMS about boots, on and on, right? And so like that personalization is like really very simple inside of Braze, so long as you have the data flowing. And then all of their features are powered in that same way. Once you learn one way to do things, it's very similar to AMP. Once you learn how to do one thing in Braze, you kind of know how to do all of it. And most of that is like around the targeting and slicing and usage of the data inside of the templates and the visuals that you deliver to the consumer when they're using your app.
So it covers all the different channels that communications might go to the users, like
Yes, definitely.
emails and SMS that you mentioned, and in-app. Is there any other channels that they cover as well?
Yeah, push notification for sure. I mean, and then on website. So not just push for mobile app companies, but we're a triple platform, Android, iOS, and web.
I see.
And so like this tool covers all of those bases, and everything I just talked about outside of like native push notifications can work in the browser, including browser push notifications.
I see. And traditionally, and traditionally, like it would be considered a tool for marketing.
I would say so. Yeah. I would say like most marketing lifecycle marketers, like growth marketers, are going to know about Braze, but product managers may not. And that's, I hope this podcast really helps bridge that gap, because, as a MarTech guy, and I'm sitting in between these two groups of people, I see where all this power can be used by both sides very effectively, so long as they're not like so siloed that they're not talking to each other. But most of our experimentation, even how we want to show a user and test something to a user, is done in-app with in-app messages. Very similar like Andrew did and talked about using Pendo on his web product, but in app, it's even more painful to run experimentation because you have an adoption cycle, you have an app release, you have an upgrade cycle, like all this stuff has to happen for people to even encounter your experiment, right?
Yes.
So we actually really abuse the in-app messaging for experimentation on the product side. We'll just spin up like HTML feeds and inject them into the app with an in-app message. And then that will be an experience that we wanted to try and have an iOS dev build, but it's much faster to build an HTML, CSS and just deploy it in front of everybody that has the app, regardless of like upgrade cycles or not,
Yeah.
So like that's a really exciting way to use Braze for product people. And it's really easy to do it. And it's much, much, much faster to do it than to do an adoption cycle inside of app deployments, things like that.
I see, of course. Yeah. And is it also like cross applications? So if you have a web app or a website that they can use it, and then they have the mobile app, it will go like across them and get information from all of them?
That's what's so cool. Yes. And so like if you're on the web can send, events and data and attributes of your user and its behavior to your profile in Braze. And then the app will also send it, and the data lake will also send it, and Amplitude will also send it. And so you're just getting this like really clear picture of what a user's doing across every platform and every app. And then you can take all that and stitch together and say, wherever they land next, this is what they're going to see. Or whenever they do this behavior on any platform, this will open up, and it will open up in this way on the app. It'll open up in this way on the web. It'll open up on this way on Android or iOS in really specific scenarios, or, even pretty crazy. Like if they're on this version and not that version for like lifecycle management of like you guys were talking about, like killing off a feature and letting people know about it ahead of time. Like you can give them very specific experiences in that in-app message without sacrificing it and making everybody look at it at the same time. Right.
Right.
So
very nice. So you mentioned experimentation. What other type of in-app messaging you can do with Braze?
Well, so they have really like out of the box stuff. And this is a very like checkers chess example as well, right? Like you can play checkers with chess pieces and it works. But if you learn chess, you can go really deep. You can spend a lifetime doing it. So like Braze is very similar. You have kind of like your stock, like color picker and font choice and things like WYSIWYG, like kind of editor for an in-app message if you wanted to do it that way. And you can select what corner it rolls up from and all this stuff about like customization. And then they have several different versions of that. And so you have like an image one, an image and buttons one, a full screen, a light box, a little slide up toast, like all the things you'd expect to be able to like push in front of a consumer. And then you have just like this full on like inject a web view. And that was the one we abused the most in MarTech. And MarTech's whole role is really to be the like tech muscle of like messaging, And so we're going to use it a little bit more, I guess, like we're going to flex the tech a little harder than I think most of your marketers or product managers. But if you are a product manager and you open up Braze, it becomes very simple to build a journey and like see where you want messaging to fire at certain events of behavior on certain platforms. And then you just kind of pick which one you want to work with as a default, or you would use something that MarTech would build you from like a template like perspective. So you can just click a couple buttons that we provide you, and you're off to the races if you have a tech team available that can build out really complicated templates for you. If you are that tech person, I mean, you just need to know JavaScript, CSS, and HTML, and you can build any kind of experience you want with any kind of interaction layer. Mainly because they let inside of the in-app message that you're sending the consumer, that experience can be a full-on web app that you build out. And so, I mean, it's sky's the limit in that experience, but they connect you to the SDK that's installed on whatever platform you're serving that message to, and from there you can access the data in real time when that web view loads up, and it will deliver the content that's based on the data for that user. And so you can get really creative, like really fast. It's way beyond just trying to get a message in front of a user. It can be very, very involved in similar ways that Pendo can. But I would say this one was easier to code inside of as like a hardcore power user, where Pendo is really good at being able to create guides with next buttons that are very easy to like produce.
Yeah, there is an interface
that's
dedicated to do that. Dedicated for that. So you don't really need a developer in most cases, I would say.
Right.
So how much development or developer times do you usually need with Braze to actually create those messages?
Well, yeah. So I think you don't really need a developer to create most of the things that most people would want to do. I think the things that excite me and that really show like personalization and granular targeting, those things can require a dev. But also, if you're okay with kind of some of the stock template stuff and some of the stock behavior, I mean, you really can create whatever you want without a dev. It just becomes much more powerful once you have a dev, and the places that you can get data from and ship data to are very powerful as well. I think one of the cool things that like really does require a dev that becomes kind of like you do it once and you never want to not do it again after doing it is like a connected content call. And so like in any kind of message that you would deliver, and then, I mean, push, text, doesn't matter. Right before you send the message, you can reach out to an API endpoint and say, update me on this user. I'm about to try and send them a message. What's the last thing that they shopped from? And then you get that back, and then you change the whole message based on that on its way out. Yeah. And that's in every single way to use Braze that works. And so that's like where you start seeing like, whoa, this gets like really powerful really fast when you can like really like in real time connect to data and ask it questions and change everything about the message on its way out.
So that's like real-time analytics you can really act on. So
yeah, exactly. That's like really the loop, right? It's like product managers are messaging, understanding, analyzing, delivering the next iteration, right? And so once you do that once, you can say, okay, I want to message, but I want to analyze and deliver the message all at once based on this behavior, because these things worked last time. And we're going to look and see who did that behavior most recently, message those users, look at the exact thing that they did the behavior for, and then pull in all the imagery for that in real time and update them on the price of it currently, for example. So that's how we deliver like price updates right now in a test, in an A/B test right now we're running.
What's your take on the tool's analytics capabilities?
I like the analytics. I like it if you're really just trying to see the performance of a campaign, and it's going to do it message by message, right? And so, and what that's really kind of important to call out, because Braze really only thinks inside of like a message context. So one out, what's the stats of those? Another one out, what's the stats of those? It's not like, what's the stats of the entire population's daily campaign over the last month, right? Okay. It's going to be day by day stats aggregated up instead of, what is the impact of getting 7 messages in a week, right? And so I've listed that kind of complaint to them, and they've really been really receptive with their product managers. I've gotten on multiple like one-on-ones with them and recorded through some like usability studies and things like that. And they're really surprised to even find out people are thinking that way. But, a 7-day campaign delivered daily, that's kind of one unit to me, and an experience that you want to measure in isolation. And so I would say they're very bad at that because they just don't design their system to do that. But if you're trying to see if like people open this thing and click through and then did what, like the next thing and a success event, like you can set all of that up. So you can say they must do this event, and that event to be considered a success. And it has to happen within an hour of clicking the push notification. And what's the success rate of that message? You can always ask that question. And so that's pretty normal. And most people can get that. I think once you like dial it up to like, what's the overall experience, they fall flat.
So it works well coupling it with something like Amplitude or Mixpanel.
100%. Yeah. Awesome. And it has direct integrations with those. So like you can, they call it a current, and any interaction engagement level data from things that Braze generates, like open a message, open an email, click a link in the email, all of that can get shipped to whatever analytics stack you have with a couple clicks and potentially an upgrade necessary depending on what contract you're on.
Okay.
Well, one is the interesting thing, and I'm not, my background is not so much in consumer products, so that's really interesting to hear from you, working in products that are B2C, that I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's a bit more complicated than B2B because there is so many interaction points that you can have with these consumers. Especially if you have a web application and a desktop application or a mobile application. And then you also interact with them through different marketing channels. And you really want to get the real picture about a specific person across all of them. So it sounds like you could do that with Braze, and it will give you all of that information to really build up your next message to them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And so like a really good example right now is like, how do I recommend to a consumer out of band, out of app, and get them into my app again that they should see this influencer. They're going to love this influencer if they go look at it based on their behavior so far. Mm-hmm. How do I do that with any other tool? And then also once they're in the app, show them that influence in a really highlighted way. Quickly, right? Like without having an app upgrade and a UI update to an app. Like once you go native, you get trapped in these cycles that become very difficult to do quick movements on. And Braze really alleviates a lot of that. And so, me delivering that campaign, I can say everybody that has done at least one or two of these behaviors that can feed my algorithms, I'm going to go tell those algorithms, I want to update this user about this, a recommendation. So I tell Braze to tell those algorithms to feed me data back with those connected content blocks. Once I get that data back, then I can have the message either say, don't send because we didn't get a good recommendation, or we got a great recommendation, ship this message to them now, but ship it to them at the exact time that they have routinely been showing up in the app. So we can kind of prime their behavior to keep going like they've been naturally going. And we can deliver it in the timing that is best for them. And so I don't even have to worry about timing anymore. I just hit that checkbox and it delivers it in their time zone at the time they're most likely to open the app to prime that app open. They'll get that notification. It'll show them a really cool image. They can swipe through those images. Again, that's a unique kind of interesting Braze like push notification is these carousel notifications too. I'll just leave that there. You guys should definitely look at it on the website. It's awesome. Okay. But once they tap in, or even if they don't tap in, but they got it, I know that it was delivered. That's a journey step. And then the next step, they'll be in the app and on app open or on a certain screen, I can deliver that recommendation. So you should check this guy out. He's probably really up your alley. And you'll probably want to shop from him. Here's a recent post from him. All of that will come from real data in real time at the moment of delivery. And that's really exciting to me. That's where it becomes about me, the individual, not the group of people that you've cohorted me in.
And you're not sampling a date range necessarily where, people have changed preferences. If you're looking,
I'm asking about now.
You ask about now, like what's the person thinking right at this moment?
Yeah,
exactly.
That's cool. Yeah. So, but to set up something like that, you probably need to have quite a bit of different type of messaging rules or whatever they call it to set it up.
Yeah, and it will feel just like MailChimp. Like it's no more complicated to set that targeting up than MailChimp is. It will feel just like your segmentation. Once you've gotten kind of the rules set up to get that delivery journey set up, and that's a drag and drop UI, by the way, and it's really great. You can really see the steps that each of your split tests or each of your decision trees will go through. When those message components will deliver, whether it's a push or an in-app message or a content card or a content block will fire, even webhooks are considered campaigns, right? So I can go out and tell other systems that something has happened. Or I can ask other systems for data to then decide whether they should continue forward or not. It's really neat. I mean, once those like basic rules are set up, then you do get into those kind of more difficult to build out, but not too difficult. It's really not difficult if you know HTML and like even a little CSS. This will look very familiar to you, and that will reach out and get data for you, and then you're delivering real-time stuff for sure. But you know, a lot of what we did early on in the early days with Braze, before we really started flexing technical muscles, was just to like build the rules and target people with things that human beings picked for them in segment chunks. So like upgrade campaigns, for example. We're doing upgrade campaigns right now with in-app messages to say it's time to upgrade the app. There's a lot of cool stuff. Here's some reasons you should hit upgrade, person that makes money from this app. And that's a scary prospect, to hit upgrade on an app you make money from today. And then so like the creator side, the influencer side, it's hard to get them to upgrade. And so we use in-app messaging to get them to upgrade. Then we started really flexing tech muscles to create reminder buttons and say, remind me later, for people to opt out of it, and then make sure they don't forget. That was a big one. So that took us from like a 2-week cycle of upgrade time down to less than 24-hour upgrade time to get the exact same rate that 2 weeks did. And so we went from, a 0% adoption rate of a new upgrade version, especially with the reminder button. It takes less than 24 hours to get to 85% adopted in the new upgrade. And then we chase all the stragglers that don't have auto updates on or didn't hit the upgrade button. And then they get a reminder in X days. And X days is up to me as the guy in Braze, or the product manager listening.
Very nice. Very nice. And you touched a bit about the user interface. Tell us a bit about that, how easy it is for non-technical people to use it.
I would say it's actually probably easier for non-technical people to use it than it is for technical people to use it. For the power users, it's very much like I want to be in my code environment, and I want to be able to push it into GitHub, and then GitHub push it into a certain repo or something, right? Like there's a flow that engineers want to have. Otherwise we're kind of coding in like the WYSIWYG editors, and it's, I'm screwing my face up while I say that. It's like really brutal and painful. And you just don't want to be coding in that environment because you're basically copying and pasting like constantly. But for the average person, they're going to just like click what they see and then edit the text there and then change the color and, all that sort of customization. And then there's live preview of everything that you do. And then further, it's all bucketed into what kind of campaign you want to, what kind of type of campaign do you want to send? Is it step? Is it a canvas where it's a full-on journey that you want to track? Is it just a simple push? Okay, which platform do you want? Do you want to send to multiple platforms? It really you can get as layered as you want per message. And so the organization of it, the usage of it, the UI of it, all of that is really simple to look at and understand. And then every rule that you create inside of a message is summarized in a human readable sentence. And that's just unique. That one's MailChimp doesn't do that. You just have to break open that full on and I say MailChimp because I feel like most product managers and marketers probably have used MailChimp at some point, but we're just talking about email filtering rule kind of UIs, right? If from this, don't send that kind of stuff. It's just the XOR logic where you're doing if else and you're checking for data and attributes and rules, and you're setting those up. That summary is really nice to see on a campaign when I'm just trying to hunt down which campaign is doing what, because we send a lot of campaigns, so many.
Do you have the ability to throttle how many in-app messaging you send out or how many push notifications you send out?
That's such a really important question, Matt. And I'm really, really glad you asked. Yeah, so you can throttle in so many different ways. For in-app messaging, you have high, low, and medium priority, not in that order, obviously. But then you can manually stack which in-app message is going to show up when, and which one will beat the other one if there's a tie. And then on top of that, you can say this person should get no more than one message globally a day if you wanted to do that. We're a consumer app, so we can be a little more aggressive. But our influencer app, we don't do as much multi-message a day kind of stuff. But we do combine messaging where it's much like an email clicked will cause an in-app message to show on the next step because they're ready for step 3 of the whole flow that we want them in, Or we'll be able to also say, we should never hit an API that's asking for data more than X amount of times per second or per minute. And that's really important so that you don't bring down your systems, because Braze is going to rep through like every single user. And for every user that you want to send a message to that falls within your rules, it's going to ask that API for data every time. And so like you want to make sure that either you guys have built some very scalable backends, or you respect their limits and you set that rule up, but all of it's controllable. And so you can really protect that user from being spammed when multi-silo companies are not, communicating very well between the departments. And there's that small risk that, you guys could message somebody to the fatigue point. Braze can help you protect that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moshe and I talked about that in the past.
Right. Yeah. It's an awesome question.
No, and it is important that a system like that will have something like this, because it really needs to help you manage these things and not rely on just people knowing when someone will get something, because very quickly this will get really it could get really messed up, and then you get the opposite outcome of what you were trying to do in the first place.
Too many cooks in the kitchen, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, you really can like bury a user and wait too many messages, and they'll just uninstall your app.
Yeah,
exactly. What about onboarding of new users to use the product? Are you using this as well?
We are, yeah. And a lot of onboarding is about getting that consumer to see the really important first step, cold start. We don't have a lot of data about you. So you should be looking at something like this and hitting that button and, giving us the data that we need to understand what you like. And so some of that is, calls to action that we'll push into the screen and say, like, check this out. We think you'll love it. And then depending on how they interact, we can start, bucketing them correctly. But that call to action really is trying to get them to start giving us some interaction level data that can inform the system to then start delivering the loops of behavior that we're looking to deliver. Mm-hmm. And then, I still would say, like, I think Pendo really is still the king of like onboarding. They built like a UX and a UI for people that is very comfortable to work inside of, to create an exactly like 1, 2, 3 step 1, 2, and 3 guide, to guide somebody through it. But that said, like, you can always do that inside of Braze with some tech flex. Like if you can flex a little bit of muscle on the tech, you can do something like that. But they don't like really try and build guiders. Like they're really looking for you to deliver an experience, and then the app to be able to either pick that experience back up after you've like prompted somebody to get there, or for you to have kind of a more intense like web view that's like got a lot of like guidance inside of it that can move you through the app. But I think Pendo really truly is like the right tool if you're talking about onboarding. Getting somebody like to catch like an onboarding message through Braze, you kind of want to limit it to like one step, which generally, like, I've seen more success with one-step guiders than I have with any other amount of guiders, to be honest. Like, there are success to be had for very complicated, long flows, but not for the consumer world. I think our creators and our influencers really respond well to our multi-step onboarding guide that we do still deliver through Pendo. But the Braze ones that we deliver to consumers do really well when they're just like, try this, check this out. Mm-hmm. Like, have you seen this section? Do you know what this is? Like, check out this new search feature, like that sort of stuff. I think if you didn't want to, flex your tech muscle and you wanted to build a guider, the only real thing that you need is those app devs to deliver you eventing. And then each time an event occurs, you can have a Braze in-app message catch it and see it and react. And so you might have a guider that says, welcome, check out this section. And when they land on that section, it fires an event to Braze, and then Braze delivers the second IM or in-app message. And then once that in-app message gets there, they're on step 2, technically, right? And you can have a journey built like that. But, I would say they're not really thinking in that way when they're talking about in-app messaging. In-app messaging is really more of like a one and done, move them through the app, execute the step that you want them to execute, and then beyond that, you want to let them have the experience inside the app. That's their opinion, at least.
Well, each one of those products came from a very different perspective. So I think that's what cause this difference on or type of functionalities that you have.
Yeah,
but we are seeing how, as they grow and as they gain more momentum and gain more users and stuff like that, they realize that there could be much more. They could do much more with that. So
right.
that's really interesting. There is the fact that I didn't hear about Braze doesn't mean other product managers didn't hear about Braze. I'm sure there are others like you that are using it out there. So I'm really happy that we found out about that, and we are bringing that out as well. Tell us a bit about maybe the best 3 and the least 3 features that you like or don't like.
Yeah, I think, I've really geeked out so far. So, a lot of the best features to me are, the connected content block, the nerdy stuff. That's unreal. Like being able to reach out to an API and get data like inside of a message as it sends out, or allow it to kill the message so it doesn't send because no data came through. Like that was really unique to me in a way that like no other messaging kind of platform is provided in that way.
That sounds really cool what you just said.
Yeah. So that's like top number 1 for me, is like just, and that being used in every single type of message that you can create a template inside of is just unreal. Like that's so great to be able to do. The other one is, the data connectivity and the way that I can push and pull data out and in to Braze, to all the stack that we use across all of these different business units. It's fantastic. So I really can feed a lot of intelligence in and out of other systems. Third would probably just be like the breadth of messaging, journeys that I can create. I mean, I could start you an email and have you, see you on the web and make sure to prompt you to download the app with an in-app message on web or in a web push notification even. And then from there, see you show up in the app and get you a welcome onboarding modal there, because I know that you came from the web. And, the journey just gets really complex in a great way. And they simplify that journey, like mapping, in a really fantastic way too. And it's a visual tool. It's fantastic. So that one I'm a big fan of. I'd say like, the worst 3, I'm not a fan of their analytics, but I know that they're like really aggressively, actively working on that. I ship everything out to Amplitude, but they make that very easy for me to do and understand that if I'm a super analytic nerd, like Matt and I are, then we're going to want it in another system. And there's just hundreds of ways to move that data out into different platforms. So, while that's a detractor and I hate that I can't just do it in their tool, I don't mind because I move it to where I can do it. I think for most people trying to see how the campaign is doing, they're going to have numbers on it and it's going to be easier to understand there. But for me, I want to see, did it drive purchases? That's you can set that up to be reported inside of Braze, but I like the real granularity of it inside of an analytics stack. So that, I would give them a ding for their analytics. It's kind of rough. I think there's like some gotchas around some of the more technical stuff that become more of a headache to deal with. There's some things like, if you want to deliver in-app messages in a guider way, they're not built for it. So you've got to attack it from like that SDK instrumentation level. So you've got to set a setting and go beg a dev to do that for you. That's really annoying. I want to be able to just say like, I want the default to be 1 second gaps between in-app messages. Let me control that. Like, I'm not going to deliver a bad thing. Don't force a 30-second gap on me. So that's kind of annoying. I don't have many other ones. Like anything that I've bumped into, their support team has not only gotten on the phone with me and video walked me through something, they're also like will have the devs set some things up in the SDK, and they'll download the test flight build, and like that's unreal. I've never had a support team go, send us a dev version of your build of your app so that we can debug it for you. That's support that is above and beyond, and isn't like some special package that we signed up for. I mean, it's just kind of is there.
So you already answered my next question that we usually ask about the company.
Oh yeah. They're amazing. Where I gush and get excited about Amplitude, I would say Braze is even head and shoulders above Amplitude support.
Wow.
Sure.
So there is always a way to improve for everyone, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Even Braze.
Well, I mean, someone is setting up standards and maybe looking at others to see what it is, but I think that there is always place to improve, and the more your users are gushing about you about that, the better.
Yeah,
So-
I agree.
Agreed.
Yeah, definitely.
Perfect. No, that was really, really interesting. Again, because I never heard about the product, so I was really interested to hear about it and see what it is. And second, because of a lot of interesting, ideas that you raised over there that probably with some of the more traditional ones that we hear about, maybe it is harder to do or harder to see, or you have to do integrations in other ways. But like you said, there is also things that they can improve on, like any other product. Mm-hmm. And it's all coming from, what type of problem they're trying to solve in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. And, and I would say, like, if you were going to pick one tool to hold hands over with marketing and product, like, this one's the one you guys should like powwow around. Like, mm-hmm. if you can get some product guys in there with some marketing guys in there and some life cycle marketing guys in there, like, everybody combined makes Braze this really, really useful tool that does amazing things that drive metrics. And they're really focused on that. And I have not been able to find a way to break the system, I guess, in a way. Like, it hasn't, I can always find a way to extend its power, be it technical or not. There's a lot of ways to just flex Braze naturally, the way Braze wants to be flexed. And it's just really powerful. So love the tools.
That sounds like a great conclusion. Matt, do you have any other questions?
No, we could keep going on and on. I think we'll probably have you back on the show again down the road here, Ken.
Okay.
Our conversations are always really entertaining. I'm definitely going to be diving deeper into Braze after this call. So thanks again for joining us. Really do appreciate it. This is Product for Product. We're signing off.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye.